I tell them, I'm like, I am not a public school. I am not a charter school. This is not what this is. This is different. This is play-based learning. And we have books, we have worksheets, we use whiteboards, we do all of the same things. One of my sweet peas came from public school and throwing tantrums to go to school. I hate school. I will not go to school today. And then having the conversation before they came, I was like, okay, what are your expectations of a teacher? And it was so funny because it was silence. Like no one had ever asked him that question before. My life is so my own now. I own my own life. And I think that was something that as we get older, we kind of see through like this facade of what's important, right? I almost wish like I could pop my family in and be like, so how am I different? I know I'm more patient than I ever was before because I don't have to worry about baloney. We'll use a teacher appropriate word, right? I have always been drawn to sunflowers. This is a pretty personal story.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Traveling Teacher Podcast, teachers who left the classroom but not education as a whole. Today we have a very special guest, Alicia Wronski, who at 34 years old walked out of the corporate world to begin her teaching career. While in the Arizona public school system for 4 years, there were many ups and downs that led her to try something new post-COVID. Alicia now runs a small micro school called Sustainable Sunflower Tutoring that focuses on students with special needs and getting them the tailored attention that works best for them. Alicia's dream is to one day buy a farm that is run by people with disabilities. Alicia, thank you so much for being a guest on the Traveling Teacher Podcast.
Hello.
It's really a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This will be really fun.
Absolutely. Our first conversation was amazing. You have a lot of interesting stories in and out of the classroom and a lot of experiences that ultimately push you to where you are today. So I'm super excited to hear about all of these things. But tell us how this all started, because you didn't start out initially as a teacher. What were you doing before that?
So I worked in commercial real estate. I was kind of the go-to gal. I was doing accounting, administrative work, all of that. And it was just not feeding my soul's purpose. So I basically kind of walked out of that situation, and at the time was a single mom, and I was like, so what am I gonna do with my life? What is gonna give me some purpose? So I was like, I'm just gonna go work at my kids' school. And I walked in there and they had some paraprofessional jobs. So I had volunteered with kids with autism in college, and I thought, oh, that was really fun. I can totally do this. So walked in, it was what we call a self-contained classroom. And that afternoon, I called my mom and I was like, oh, I found my calling. And she said, what is that? And I said, I'm supposed to work with kids with special needs. And she's like, are you out of your mind? And I said, no, I really think this is what I'm supposed to do. So within that, I ended up in Arizona. We have a program called Teacher in Residence. So my first 2 years teaching, I had a classroom of my own, including a team of paraprofessional support, and I was going to school full time. So I was basically an intern earning my stripes and stars on the job. So it was an incredibly crazy 2 years teaching in public schools. At the end of my second year teaching, the world shut down and we had COVID. And that was kind of an interesting time because I knew I loved teaching. Like I had totally found my place in the world. But at that time, I really started thinking, oh, yes, like the world shut down. We're going to totally redo schools and it's going to be the way that it's meant to be. And to be very honest, my own daughters go to public school. So I have love and respect for public school, but it wasn't meeting the needs of my students that I was teaching at the time. And so I was teaching a self-contained classroom. I forget how many kiddos I had that year. I've had anywhere from 13 to 10, and it kind of changes and varies. But I was like, we need to do shorter class periods for these kids. They're just like so worn out. And with COVID, we had this really amazing opportunity that our kids did come in for these shortened periods of time, and my kids started showing growth. Like we had been doing 6.5 hour school days, and they were kind of, slowly going up, but like we had major growth in these short periods of time. I don't say we went off book, but we really started to incorporate some like play-based learning into our practices at that time because we had the opportunity to do it. And I saw just major, major, amazing things happening with my students. So with that, it kind of started this idea of play-based learning in the classroom, which is definitely one of my passions. And then we had another year kind of coming back from COVID. That was all sticky and gross. I feel like everyone kind of had the same experience. Like it just was not teaching. It was just survival, right? We were kind of just trying to go through the motions of that year. And then the next year was a really, really rad year for me. I had a violent student. The placement was not correct. So dealing with that as a special education teacher, along with demands from admin. I feel like anyone who's been in that situation kind of can relate to that. It became a situation where I was really struggling personally with it, not really knowing how I could help this student, help my other students, and listen to the higher ups, and also listen to what my students needed and listen to myself. And just nothing was kind of lining up. And then I also had a student pass away that year. And it was just a rough year. It was a bad year. I was ready to take a break. And I had also had parents at some point say something to me of the effect of, why don't you run a home tutoring program? Why aren't you doing this? Because I didn't know it was an option. I didn't know that that was really something you could like do for a living. Like I thought if you were a teacher, you worked in public schools or charter schools or private schools. Those are the only options. You got to work in a school. And it's so cool how this is all going to come full circle here in a minute. So my student that passed away, his mother was actually the first one who was like, Alicia, you should really think about this, right? After that 4th year teaching, my husband, my kids, we were all like, listen, mom's got to step out for a minute and take a break. So I substituted because I couldn't keep myself away from it. I had to go back into the classroom somehow. And then my first tutoring student, his mom called me and was like, how would you like to help him full time, like run a home education tutoring program? And I thought, oh, what's the worst that could happen, right? Like we can, do it the way I've always thought we could do it. And I remember asking this parent, I was like, please, like, let me be creative. Let me kind of step outside of the box of what we've been doing. And it's been super awesome. So with that, I now am teaching the student that passed away. I have his sister full time. She does not have any special education needs, but I think every child has a unique learning need. So that's kind of like the niche that we have going on here. I've also hired his mother to come be my assistant teacher next year. So she's going to be co-teaching with me. And we have 7 kids on our roster for our tutoring program next year. So it really went from like this is what I meant to do, but I don't know how it's going to work, to like, oh, all these little puzzle pieces are starting to come together, and things that I wanted to do in the midst of chaos that was COVID are really starting to come to fruition now. So it's pretty cool.
Unbelievable. That's such an awesome part. Everything in, even from going from, corporate real estate to going into the classroom. And, I have a lot of respect for that, because we're realizing that the real estate was not something that was really kind of fulfilling you to a degree in which you wanted it to. And when you kind of took that first leap and went into the classroom at being a paraprofessional and really just saw that from the start, and said, hey, I really think this is something that I should be doing here. And you ended up pursuing it. And that's such a tough thing to do at any point in life, is making a transition like that. And because I'm sure with the real estate, you were making maybe a little bit more than as a teacher.
It was pretty predictable.
And so, taking that leap and really taking that risk, right? And going for it and seeing it through. And again, that's such an important piece too, I think. And it's a pretty common piece with a lot of the guests that I have on, is that people who jump from job to job or job to becoming a business person and starting their own thing all have that piece of like, I can't hold on any longer. I need to continue on to my
Yeah.
path, and wherever my path is going to bring me is where I'm supposed to go. And so that freedom and that ability internally to say, that's okay, I got to keep going, I got to start fresh and keep moving forward is something that, again, I do respect a lot, and it's clearly paid off. I mean, tell us, what grades were you involved in while you were teaching?
So one year I had first through fifth grade, which is a huge developmentally, like, give me kids of any age. I'm going to be able to modify and accommodate the way that I need to. I feel like those of us that are educators because we're called to be educators, like, that doesn't scare us. That's kind of the best part of the job besides working with kids, because I really like kids and their honesty. The behavioral differences between a first grader and a fifth grader and what they're going through in life. So, yeah, I've had a huge gamut of munchkins. Right now, we've kind of streamlined it. Most of the kiddos are third graders. We have a couple kids that we'll call our outliers. I think that's really important too, because we're building a community is what I call it. So I call it my Sustainable Sunflower Community. I'm not a parent of kids with special needs, but there's a few of those in this little group of people that we have. And so I want them to lean on each other and get to know each other, because they're dealing with things in life that I can't relate to. As well as just having other parents to talk to and lean upon. I know that we're going a different place than your original question, but that's like the other part of this. In public school, you have to sign a release to release information about your child. You've got to, it's so hard to make play dates anymore. And parents are all working different schedules and stuff like that. So the thing that's kind of fun with this is that they are having an opportunity to homeschool, but they don't have to. They have a certified teacher who's willing to do that for them. And as well as like making their lives flexible and creating these opportunities to have genuine relationships, which was something I, didn't feel in public schools, but also, like, I will say with the tutoring aspect, and maybe you can speak to this too, Peter, is that you kind of do feel like you're on your own island a little bit. Because there aren't a whole lot of people doing what we do. So the other part of this is, as I say, building a community is also building a community for teachers and educators and tutors, because, like, you get that kiddo and you're like, I've been teaching the same concept for 3 months and it's just not happening. And then you talk to somebody else, at lunch one day and they go, oh, I tried this with Susie and it worked great. So creating a community is so important with all of this that is happening, because school's a community. That's what it really was supposed to be initially, was the community for, young people to learn these basic facts and then go out into the world and be productive members of society. So that's the other part of this, is that with the kind of tutoring that we're doing, it's not, we use curriculum, we're using state-based standards. But the way that kids are able to express their knowledge doesn't have to be through a test. That's part of this too. It's all over the place.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with everything that you're saying. I mean, there's a lot to unpack in everything that you just said, and let's start with the fact that you want to you want to create a community for parents and students that are in similar situations. And of course, there's what you call the outliers, and I agree. But they're all in the same space, and there has to
Yeah.
be a little bit of diversity there. And for the parents specifically, I mean, I'm sure for you as well. And I remember stories from our initial conversation where, parents just feel extremely isolated as well. The
Hmm.
teachers do, the parents do, the system as a whole is designed for the masses. And yet when we kind of step away in certain aspects and we have this ability to come back to what's important, which is that community,
Yeah.
and have these parents understand that other people are experiencing very similar, if not identical, things to them. And then they have that resource, that support around them, that they can ask questions of people who have been a little farther on down the
Yeah.
line, or can eventually become a mentor for people who are starting to come up. And it's such an important thing to have, and the same thing with the teachers as well, right?
Yeah.
And that is why that's why this podcast was started to begin with, is that when I left teaching, I had no idea. If you told me 10 years ago that this is what I was going to be doing right now, I'd be like, You're talking about the wrong
Five
person. I
years
have no
ago,
idea
I've
who
been
you're
like,
talking
y'all are
about.
insane.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, it's just you look at it now and you're like, wow, this is so possible. And again, like, this podcast has been created for that reason, that teachers who are in the classroom, who are feeling a
Oh,
calling to do something different, can now hear stories like
I
yours
lost
and
you,
many
Peter.
others, to be able to say
Yeah.
that, hey, wow, that's something that I'd like to do. I mean, me personally, I've learned so much from the guests I've had on so far about the different opportunities and the different things out there. So, the networking that you're talking about and the community that you're forming is something that I do definitely totally align with. And, yeah, it's, talking about the parents and how especially in the beginning with that mom, where you said, let me do this a little bit differently, right? I mean, yes, talk to us about
Yeah.
that.
It really, and it's always been that conversation with all of my parents, is that I tell them, I'm like, I am not a public school. I am not a charter school. This is not what this is. This is different. This is play-based learning. And I mean, we have books, we have worksheets, we use whiteboards, we do all of the same things. But I'm trying to incorporate an element of fun, because learning should be fun. And that was the thing when I worked in public schools that absolutely drove me crazy, was that it was very only teach this curriculum. This is all that we're doing. I really was like, we need more. Our kids need more. And especially, I will say, I have so many things to say about special education. Some of the curriculum is abysmal. I will say that. It's just not robust enough. And we have the science behind phonics. And just because a child has special needs, it doesn't mean we shouldn't be teaching phonics. I think there's so much support in literature for that. And so, yeah, I still use that in my tutoring program. We're still using the same ideas and background that a lot of public schools use for choosing curriculum and things like that. But we're using kinesthetic learning. We're using tactile experiences. We're using auditory experiences. We're using play, even at the park. I'm like, here's your chalk, please practice your spelling words. It seems simple and silly, but just those simple opportunities for kids to move and create in a different way. I have so many creative students and they're just so artistic. So they'll draw let's say their spelling word is bird, and they'll draw birds all over the word. And it's just like, that's how they remember it. And that's how they're able to store the information, and they have the time to do it. I think is the other part, is that we rush through things, and we're managing behaviors in public school. Like, that's really, and those are even the conversations I have with my daughters. I have a daughter that will be a freshman in high school and a daughter going into 7th grade. And I said, how much time do you really feel like your teachers spend teaching you? And they're like, maybe 15 minutes in an hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are at
Wow.
school so
Yeah.
long for just like 15 minutes of instruction every day. So, I mean, really, that's kind of the idea I'm taking here too, is taking this very long day that's exhausting because we're dealing with so many behaviors and other children and their issues, and bless their hearts. I have space for all of it in my heart. I really do. But for me, I'm like, I want my 7 munchkins. I want us to come in. We start our day at the park. We've got to do some sort of sensory outlet. I am, as an adult, I need that time. I don't know about other people, but before I start my workday, I need 30 minutes of like decompression just to be ready for whatever's coming. So we start with that, and then we go right into it. And we do, we work in a tight timeline. I can talk today, but it's not wasted time. We're not really dealing with a ton of behaviors. And also, like, it's communication. When you only have 7 students, and I do not plan on growing my classroom bigger at this time. This is it for me, I should say, for us. And, if they have a bad day, they can just say, Miss Wronski, can I talk to you in the other room? I'll be like, yeah, let's go talk in the kitchen, and I didn't sleep well last night and my stomach hurts. And I'm like, oh, okay, so what is it that you can do today? So are you red, yellow, or green? same ideas that we've used in a lot of public schools, right? The zones of regulation, and if they're yellow, I'll be like, okay, so let's only do 5 spelling words today and see where we are. It's just managed expectations. And that's another thing that I do with my students before they even come the first day is I make a phone call. And that's part of this thing with community too, right? It's like, I pick up the phone and I call everybody and I text them all the time. My parents get messages. They got a message from me on Friday, saying, okay, here's our idea for the summer. Are you guys keeping up with your reading? Like, it doesn't stop kind of thing. It's just this continuous loop of communication with parents. And it's really hard to do that in public schools. I felt like my hands were tied a lot. And it was also like you just would omit information, So that was a really hard one. I don't feel like I have to do that. I feel like I can be totally 100% honest with my parents, and that there's never, I never have a moral quandary of, should I have done something different? When you're the boss and you're leading the way and you're doing what you feel is best for kids and families, you are able to have those conversations. I had a parent bring up something the other day that they were like, oh, we got to have a tough conversation. And I was like, there are no tough conversations here. Everything's open book. Like, this is a journey, you're choosing me to help lead your child's education until they're 18 or 21 or 22, whatever it is for that kiddo. We got to have uncomfortable conversations along the way. So yeah, that's really been another thing as for who I am as a person. I feel like, and I think a lot of teachers are struggling with that, unfortunately, right now, is that, there's this, just don't say anything. Just, what parents don't know won't hurt them. And I'm not with that. I wouldn't like that as a parent. And I definitely don't abide by that as a tutor. So, public school is a really interesting place to tread water in right now. And it's easy to drown, unfortunately. And I say that with so much love because you've been there, I've been there. This is a really amazing opportunity for so many people. And it's not just the teachers, it's the families. Like, our kids are, sitting behind desks for hours and hours a day, not moving. And especially our young men. I've just noticed it as a person observing human beings. Little boys are busy people. I have some little boys that don't move as much, and that's totally rad too. But and there's little girls that need to move a lot too. There's a lot of kids that need to move. And the idea of sitting in one spot for 6.5 hours a day sounds like torture to me. I guess I did that too. I worked at a desk. I don't want to work at a desk anymore. Another thing you kind of talked about at the beginning was the farm. I think an essential life skill is knowing how to grow food.
Yes.
And so we incorporate that. It's kind of just like a extra social studies, science thing. If I can incorporate it, we do. And especially with kids that are on the spectrum, because I have a couple of those, and we incorporate trying new foods. They can just go out into the garden and try a new vegetable. It's always there. It's up on our teacher, and that they've grown it. That's the other really cool part is that they're seeing when you plant a pea, it takes 3 months for that pea to grow. That's mind blowing when you think about it. It's a super long time period for that. And then we have chickens. My husband and I decided to get chickens. So the kids have been helping me take care of these chickens. It's kind of before and after school, they kind of come in and they help round them up. We had a chicken with an infected foot. One of the kiddos was like, can I stay and help you with that? So we gloved up and we did things like that. But it's been a really amazing opportunity for even the little things that I was like, oh, I don't think we could do this if I, did this at home. And it happens. If you want it to happen, it will happen. Whatever you want to create here is really up to you. And there's so much room for this creativity. I feel like we get fed this dialogue, you have to stay in this box. This is education. This is education. And it's not. It's this huge spectrum of a rainbow of opportunities for wherever you want to be. I do have a friend that just left teaching in public schools, and she's living in a van, tutoring from her van. I think it's so amazing. How cool is that? Wow. That you can offer that opportunity. And she's helping kids, in rural areas that don't get a lot of opportunities to meet with really good teachers too. That's the other thing is that if you're a good educator, people will find you. You don't have to worry about it. There's not a whole lot of people doing this kind of
Absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think the silver lining to COVID was that at least for education was that things are being shaken up in public education as a whole in a really big way right now.
Yeah.
And people had to seek out opportunities and different ways of educating during that time because things were kind of all over the place, right? And so
Yeah.
it really offered this idea, this ability for homeschooling or other types of education to become more mainstream, and they're growing in such a rapid way right now. And one of the things I wanted to ask about from what you were just mentioning, you one of the biggest things that I really enjoy a lot of what you talked about is giving these kids time, giving them time to do things in the way in which they want to do them, and especially from the artistic aspect of it, right? I had a couple of kids in middle school who, throughout my teaching career, that it always looked like they were extremely distracted and they were just doodling on the page. And it blew me away every time I asked them a question to kind of like be like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to trip you up. And they would answer it perfectly and immediately. And I'd be like, how is this even possible? And yet, that's the thing, right? Everybody has a different way of learning, and you giving them this time, and I really like what you said, that in the public schools we are just kind of managing behaviors and going through the motions. And so talk to me about that. I mean, when you were dealing with the behaviors and emotions within the classroom, and now that you're giving kids more time to do specific things and maybe be more artistic about it, are you noticing less of these behaviors? What was the difference between those from the classroom to
So I feel
now?
like I have one particular student I can really speak to with this because I taught him in public schools and now I teach him in my home tutoring program. So this young man is really exceptional. He's mostly nonverbal. So we use an AAC device. And I think that's so important for this conversation. So in public schools, we had a ton of screaming for communication. We had a lot of no for communication, and just work refusal. It was a lot of work refusal. And, I thought at the time it was a really manageable classroom. I think I was like at 9 or 10. I had a really amazing paraprofessional at the time, which we all know makes a world of difference. If you don't have a good paraprofessional, like, I am so sorry for you. Those people deserve to be paid way more money, especially when they're highly qualified. So, for him, for example, and we weren't making a ton of progress. Now his communication is exceptional. We have full sentences on his communication device. We have, you know what? I don't even remember the last time he screamed. I'm like trying to think about it. It's just not something that's part of our conversation anymore. And also communicating with peers. And that is like, I know that's a really big thing for a lot of parents, is that we want our kids to be included, that we want them to have these same experiences. And honestly, a lot of the time it's like a stiff arm to Miss Wronski. Like, I will ask my friend to help me. Thank you very much. And to have the power and to have I guess, like, he's so confident in it now, right? Like, we weren't having a lot of that. So I feel like that's the best example. And I know, like, that's specifically to behavior. It was really tough behavior in public schools here, and it's also like, hey, do you need a break? And like a really thought out break plan, right? So I have my feelings. I'm in my classroom right now. So I have my feelings wheel up on the wall, and there's like a little chair and some stuffies for kids. And I've got fidgets. They're marked with colors. So like the yellow, if you are having a yellow day, you know where to go. It doesn't need to be a conversation even. Like, they don't need permission from me to get their fidgets out. They don't, if it's one of those things also, and you were talking about like the eye contact, which is so big for so many of us. Like, we want that eye contact, right? We need to know that you're paying attention. So a different way that I say it is, can you give me a sound if you're paying attention to me? Any sound that you make, I'll know. And my favorite's when like he'll use his device and hit no. And I'm like, okay, thank you for letting me know that you are paying attention to me, or a thumbs up, or, a pat on the leg, or whatever it is. Any of that nonverbal communication is totally fine too. a lot of that. One of my sweet peas came from public school and, throwing tantrums to go to school. I hate school. I will not go to school today. And then having the conversation before they came, I was like, okay, what are your expectations of a teacher? And it was so funny because it was silence. Like no one had ever asked him that question before, but I figured it's a contract. If you're not going to buy into what I'm doing, I'm not going to buy into what you're doing. So we talked it through and I was like, so here are my minimal expectations of you on a daily basis. You will communicate to me if you cannot complete an activity. And like that gave him a lot of power at first and he needed it. He really needed that power again because I think it felt like he was just going and no one was listening or acknowledging him, that he was not feeling secure or safe, right? And our kids do have that right now, for sure. I mean, we can see the tantrums happening in public schools and things like that. They don't feel safe. So, that you will try. You don't have to complete it, but you have to at least try. Pick up a pencil, pick up a marker, pick up stickers, however it is that you want to complete the activity. And you'll be kind. That's it. So those are always my 3 expectations for all of my students, and it always grows from there. So like some of them have behavior charts. I hate to use that word, or motivation things. I work for money. I probably would do this without it, but I do. That's my reward. I'm able to live in this beautiful house, take care of, drive a car, live my life. So I always think it's okay for my kids to kind of work for something, but that's also a conversation. What are we working for this quarter? Where do we want to go? You guys want to go to the movies at the end of the quarter? Do we want to have a movie day here? Do you want to bring a stuffed animal from home? Like, it doesn't have to be extravagant, and it also creates community, right? So they look forward to that time together. They want to have that time together, to play together, to create these memories together. And like our class is a very tight unit. So we had 4 kids to end the year last year, and we're growing to 7. But those 4, they've got each other's back. Heaven forbid somebody come up and try to say something to somebody, because that is a tight group of kids. So I know I went all over the place with that again, but it's really lovely to have like this. And we have, a nonverbal child, and then I have 2, well, actually the other ones don't stop talking. So there's this beautiful opportunity, and they leave space for each other. So like, when someone is talking, I rarely have to remind them to stop talking because someone else is talking. And then they're all so different. So you kind of alluded to this as well, but if you, on my social media, I try to post it a lot too, is that, so to end the year, and it's easy to like end the school year with not doing anything, right? Like you kind of just do busy work. But my students were in it. Like they were like buying in hardcore, and to the point that like, some of the most sweet things, they were like, do we have to take 6 weeks off? And I was like, oh guys, I love you. Like we have to buy curriculum. Like we have to get some things done. But if I'm ready, maybe we can start earlier. We'll see what happens. But they did animal reports, and it was like, I gave them an idea of how to take notes, because they were 2nd graders at the time. You can draw your notes. You don't have to write words. You can draw what you think you're reading about and what pictures are coming to your head. And then they kind of ran with it. They either created a poster, some of them did salt dough and created animals, some of them did dioramas, and then all of them did a standing presentation, because in life, we're going to always you're going to have an opportunity to talk in front of a group of people, and you got to figure out how to do it. So, and it became really cool. Like they did such an amazing job. They blew my socks off, first of all, and then extra information that I didn't even ask for. But I think that's what this is. Like you give kids the opportunity to like invest in their own learning, they're going to do it better than you even expected. Like we're really just facilitators here. We're just supposed to guide them a little bit, but they really, once they've got those building blocks and they know how to read and they know how to write, it's all about them really finding out what they want to know and asking the right questions.
And the fact that they know that they are in charge of their education, right? Like, first of all, the heartwarming story that you talked about the transition with that student from what you were noticing in the classroom to what you're noticing now. And the fact that you had to think back and say, I can't even remember the last time he screamed, right? And talk about, that right there just shows, what you're doing and what your company and what your tutoring company is doing for these families and these kids. And again, anybody who's listening, who is a teacher, who is in the classroom, who is looking at this saying, this is everything that I've been looking for, and I had no idea that I could possibly do something like this. You have Alicia now to chat with about what it is that you have on your mind. And, I think that one of the really amazing pieces of everything that you talked about is, again, that ability to, first of all, have that structure and organization for what break time looks like for a student, have those charts and those emotional understanding and showing them what it is during that time that they can be doing, what they should be expecting of themselves, and what you expect of them during this semester, this school year. And again, the amazing transformations that you're seeing, and the fact that they're so engaged and they never want to leave, and all of those things, it must be a dream come true for you. It is definitely a dream come true for the parents. And for the students, I mean, they are living in such an amazing opportunity and lifestyle for themselves that you are creating. Talk about a community that is just something that you started from taking a leap from real estate and doing this on your own. And of course, in the beginning, this was something for you that you felt was something that was really something you needed to be doing. And you took that time in the public schools and you went through very adverse times. And again, you said to yourself, I'm going to take another leap here. And things just started falling into place, right? And the fact that you did this, and the fact that, again, you say that as of right now, 7 students is my maximum. I'm not interested in doing any more than that. And again, that just shows that you're not here for the money grab. Sure, like you said, we all have to pay our bills. We all have to do the things that this life is what it is. And so that's great. And I'm sure in an ideal world, you and I both would be doing this no matter what. Even if money was not a thing in this world, we would still be doing this because it's clearly something that we both love. And it's very clearly something that you have found for yourself and for the people around you, that you will continue to grow and continually create this community that you're looking for. And it's unbelievable. I mean, this is just it's such a cool story, such amazing things that you're talking about, working with the chickens and having them go into the garden, and especially creating that sensory ability, that initial sensory piece in the beginning of the day. I'm the same way, Alicia. I gotta get up and go for a walk before the day starts because I just need that time, and the kids do as well. And that's something for the students in the public schools that, again, certain students, that structure works amazing. Certain students, it doesn't, right? And you have pinpointed the students that it didn't seem to be exactly what it is that you thought was ideal for them. And you went and you started something different. And I do agree with what you were saying before about within the schools, you just have to throw stuff under the rug at times. And that was something that I wasn't necessarily in on as
Yeah.
well. And I think that starting a tutoring company allows you to be what you said, even if it's a difficult conversation that you have to have with a parent, which I do agree, there's no such thing as difficult conversations. They're just conversations about how we're going to move this forward to most benefit that your student
Yes.
and your family,
Yeah.
right? And that ability to freely communicate without the fear of potential repercussions from the system or from the administration or anything like that. It's such a freeing thing that, again, I point back to teachers listening to this. This is your opportunity. This is your calling. If you are here to say that I want to do something different, this is it. I mean, this is one of the many amazing guests that I've had on here that is sharing what it is that it has changed for their students, the ability to do everything in such a different way and give them more time and do all of these things. I mean, what has this done for your own self, Alicia? Like, what has this transition done for you?
My life is so my own now. I own my own life. And I think that was something that as we get older, we kind of see through like this facade of what's important, right? And for me, as when my student passed away, this little guy was my best friend. It was every morning I got greeted, Wronski, like the biggest hug in the world. And it was so beautiful and so amazing. And I even knew at that time that was a hard time because I had that student that was really disruptive, and then the student passed away, and I had kind of been thinking of leaving public school at that time because I was so disheartened by it. I was flinching when my own children came to hug me. My husband would touch me on the shoulder and I would jump, and I was like, okay, this is not in line with who I want to be as a human being. This is not lining up. This is begging parents, ask me questions so I can talk to you about anything. Like, ask me questions. And parents who are listening to this, please ask questions. Do not stop. Do not stop asking questions. You know what's best for your children. I am here to tell you, you are the parent. The school should be working with you for what's best for your child. Like, do not stop asking questions. Do not stop until you feel good about it when you go to sleep at night. That will be my little pedestal for that. And that, for me, that was also it. I didn't feel good about going to sleep at night and what was happening. I didn't feel good about the person I was. I didn't feel good about the teacher I was. I didn't feel good about who I was as a partner, as a mother. I was just, and I was grieving as well. There was definitely that part of it too. But then, also looking back and being like, what would be the best opportunity for my students? And I am so grateful that this child's mother called me and said, do you want to try this? Because it was definitely something I had just sort of put out into the universe through conversations with other people. My paraprofessional that she taught me more about my job than anybody I worked with. She was more experienced than me when I came in, and I just am so grateful for Linda. If you're listening, you really changed the course of my teaching career. But, and working with these amazing people, but also having these conversations like, it would be really cool if we could do like a snack of the week incorporated with our sound of the week, and how could we, do that? So we just sort of started doing that a little bit, and we saw, and I'll never forget this. I was teaching the kids about 3D shapes. And so I brought in different things for them to smell. And so like the next day I'm like, okay, what shape is this? And they're like, rectangular prism. And I was like, how on earth do you all remember this? It's because it was smell. And I didn't remember that smell is one of our strongest senses, right? So it was just like one of these things that things kept on building, and I saw it happening. And then when all of this came together, so like I drop off my kids to and from school now. Like, I have them in public school, so I'm able to drive my daughters to and from school. I'm able to take them to all of their sports practices. I am mom first, I am wife first, and then I am a teacher. I am Miss Wronski third. And like that really, I know that speaks to so many people, because when you're a teacher, you work god awful hours. Like, you work a lot and you never stop. And I'm not saying that that is different for me now, actually, because I still think, I'm like, oh, we need to do this activity next year. Oh, we need to do this. Like, I have Post-it notes all over this table right now, and I'm writing Post-its as we talk, and like gathering ideas and doing all of that. But my time is my own, and it belongs to me, and it feels so precious, and it's valuable. And I can see the value in my own time now. And I see the value that I have with my students, and that we're not wasting time, just teaching something to teach it. Everything is so meaningful and thought out and important for their growth. And even those days, like, I know we all have those days as teachers that we're like, we just got to sit back and do like quiet reading and art today, right? Like, there's definitely those days. But then 2 days later, they're going through their stuff and they're learning so much faster. Like, with all of this, it's just the time. And like, I have the time to take my dog for a walk in the morning. And, the kids are really incorporated into my home life, which sounds kind of bizarre and crazy, but like, if you want it to be that way, I love kids. Like, this is, I have a thing and it says, pardon the mess, but my children are making memories on the wall. I really believe in that.
Nice.
Like, and not only are, I have my own biological children, but these are my kids. Like, we all call our students our kids, they're part of our extension of our families, really. And
Yeah.
and I really hope that the families that come to me feel that. I think that's why they've chosen this experience as well, is because I really wanted to make it also that the kids feel safe here. And there's a lot to be said with that for so many reasons in public schools, but really I just want them to feel safe with their relationship with me, and that I'm a predictable, loving
Yeah.
person in their life, and that if they had an issue, that they could come to me and speak to me about it, and trust me with it. And then also that the parents know that if there was something that came up, to trust me to talk to them. So with all of this, like, my stress is way, way, way down. I did have at one point a doctor, she was like, you've got to change your life. Definitely during that fourth year of teaching, when I had so much going on and I was just in that flight or fight response all the time. I was like, is this kid going to hit me now? Like, is he not going to hit me now? Like, what's this day going to look like? When's the explosion going to happen? It wasn't if, it was when. And becoming the person I want to be. And I think that's really important with all of this, is that I'm going to be like, I'll brag, I spoke this into existence. Like, I spoke this out, and then it just came back. And it sounds really hippy dippy, and I'm totally okay with that. But like, I really, really, really hope that somebody hears this and thinks, oh, well, I don't have to do it exactly the way Miss Wronski did it, but I have these ideas. And if I had like 3 or 4 kids and I could have this little, sometimes I call them micropods or whatever. I call it my home tutoring program, because I offer tutoring services. And it can be really, you can be creative. And Peter, there's so many good teachers out there that I just know their souls are being crushed right now by these expectations that are not reachable. Like, I know in special education, like, the amount of paperwork that was expected of me on like a daily basis, like, it's impossible to keep up. Like, I remember going into like summer break and being like, I still have paperwork I probably should be doing. Like, and that is a horrible feeling. I close my laptop on Fridays. I do sometimes work still, like, let's be real. But you know what? It's not stressful. It's not, oh my God, if I don't get this done, like, I'm going to have this mucky muck calling me. I'm going to get the emails from the chain of command and like all these people. Like, none of that. It's, oh, you know what? I'm going to text so-and-so's mom and just give them a heads up. Like, I'm so sorry. I've been momming hard today. I haven't gotten there yet. So just give me 10 minutes and I'll send the email. Oh, no worries. Okay. Like, that's always what it is. It's just the stress of life is whatever I create it to be. And at this point in my life, I don't really want a lot of it. So, and that's the other part. You were kind of alluding to this earlier with talking with parents. You get to interview your parents, you guys, if you're tutors. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but you've all had that crazy parent that you're just like, oh my God, I can never make this person happy. Like, I think everyone has at some point had that parent. So when you're a tutor, you don't really get to like interview kids, but you can interview parents, and you can pass if you want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I say that with
No,
love.
and listen.
And I always tell these parents, I was
Yes.
like, listen, if I'm not the right fit, I'm going to give you a list of questions you should ask to make sure that you find the right person. Because it's nothing against me.
Yeah.
I might not be the right teacher for your kid. That's okay. Like,
And
that's really an okay thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's also a huge part of this, is that when you're your own boss, you can say, I just don't think this fits, but let's talk about where your student might get better instruction, what kind of environment you really should be looking for your kiddo. There's definitely situations that comes up. So you can pass on the hard ones.
For sure. Yeah. The autonomy that you gain in life from creating something like this, whether it's your own personal life, the life with your students. And I agree. And first of all, I agree with everything you've said this whole entire time. And, the beginning of that, you're talking about how the students are the teachers' kids as well. We have such a connection with our kids, and society and the schools, I think, kind of keep teachers there, where it's like, well, you're not going to give up on the kids, and then we hold that on ourselves, where we're not going to leave because we're here for the kids,
Ah,
and we really want to make sure that we're doing it for everybody. And at the end of the day, for anybody who's listening who is a teacher in the classroom, you come first. You are a husband first, you're a wife first, you're a parent first, you're a human being first. And you are capable of, as we found today and with other guests as well, you are capable of creating this for
yeah,
yourself. I agree with the hippy dippy stuff all the way, is that you can speak this into existence, like Alicia said. You have this ability to take the experiences that you've had from the classroom and tailor them to doing something specific. And again, if you do decide to do something like I'm doing, or Alicia, or many of the other people that I have on board here, is don't be afraid to niche down into the things that you are most passionate about. Because when you're in the school system, I think the passion gets throttled pretty easily because of all the extra stuff that we have to do, like Alicia just mentioned, with the
yeah,
paperwork and all of these extra things. There is this weight on top of all teachers in general, that if you are someone who can handle it and have found a way to make it work for you, we need you in the public schools, because I don't want to see the public schools completely
agreed.
disappear. There is value to the public schools. And Alicia's saying it right now. I mean, she has her children in the
Hmm.
public schools, right? And so there's
And
this
they're doing
best of
great.
both worlds in this situation. Exactly, right? And it works for certain
Yeah,
students. And yet, for teachers, that extra weight and that feeling guilty for leaving, and it's
yeah,
difficult, right? It is a hard thing to leave your students, because you say, internally you're like, well, who else is going to take
yeah.
care of them like I am? Am I abandoning them?
Uh,
There's so many emotions around it,
yes,
right? And when you take the leap, if you feel as though you need to take that leap and go and do it, then you can offer that passion in such a magnified way, in your own way, in your own style, in your own way. Niche down to the life that you want to
yeah,
create for yourself, your family, and your students and their families, and do it, because there's gonna be people that align with that community and that idea that you have, as is very clear today with everything that Alicia is talking about. And you make you doing that gives yourself more freedom. It gives yourself the ability to do things that you weren't able to do before when you were inside of the system. And, I mean, talk to us about that. I mean, how has this transition helped your relationships with people around you, and more importantly,
oh my
yourself?
gosh. Almost wish like I could pop my family in and be like, so how am I different? I know I'm more patient than I ever was before because I don't have to worry about baloney. We'll use a teacher appropriate word, right? The baloney of it all. I I know I have so much time for my family. That was really something I felt like I was robbed when I worked in public schools. So it's not only I don't have a commute anymore, so I can dedicate time to things like chickens in a garden, which is stuff that makes me happy. And not only that, but like I'm saving money on gas. We all know how expensive that is. Um, and I just have time. I have time for me. I have time. I've started reading again. Like, I don't know how many of you guys were readers before you became teachers. I actually had coffee with a friend this weekend who has left the education system as a teacher. And she jokes that, she had to leave teaching so she could read again. Little things like that. I used to be a yoga instructor. I'm thinking about adding that back into my life. Just I have the opportunity to be creative, and I think that adds so much more value than anything I needed that in my life, and I didn't realize it. And it's allowed me to be who I am truthfully. Like my marriage is never, I mean, I just got married in October. We've been together a long time, but I mean, we've never been better because we have time for each other. And he's a business owner. So he's running his own business. So I'm able to support him. He's able to support me. Being an entrepreneur is a very interesting choice. I wouldn't say it's an easy choice, but if you really want to take control of where your life is and where it's going to go, I think it's a really important leap to take. And I really jumped in off the bridge with both feet into a deep end. I didn't know how deep it was. But the interesting thing is that the right people come to you. Like even this conversation, right? I think I told you this, Peter, that I was like, I really think I want to do public speaking in some way, shape, or form. And then you contacted me the next day. And not only that, but your name is Peter, and that's my father's name, and you're Greek, which my father's Greek. So like all of these weird little things happen.
Wow.
Like if something's meant to happen, it will happen. And I really, really believe that. So I agree with you 100%. If you can handle public schools, like you're my hero. Like I really have so much love, admiration, and respect for you. And I think it's important to speak a little bit about Arizona public schools, particularly because we're in really rough shape here. I mean, I think we've recently dropped to 50th again. It's an interesting thing when you live in a state with lots of retirees, because, and we'll get a tiny bit political, but I think this is factual too, is that, they don't really want to vote for education. Like they're retired. They don't have little kids. Like what's the point of putting money into public schools at this point? Florida, I think, has a lot of that same situation going on too. So we have this very interesting scholarship opportunity here in Arizona called the Empowerment Scholarship Achievement. It's a really weird, it's called ESA. It's got this weird connotation to it, but it's basically giving parents a choice who maybe do live in low income neighborhoods to educate their children this way. So the state is giving a portion of the money that they would normally send to public schools. It goes to the parents, and they're empowered to choose how they want to educate their kids. So I also think not only as like a teacher has this given me the opportunity to create a life I want, but like there's opportunity for parents to create the lives they want, because there are so many kids. Like I just think about public education, and now in Arizona, if you're a gen ed teacher, you can also teach specialized instruction. Oh man, like that's opening up a huge wide range of dialogue in and of itself, just with that one thing that they changed, right? So a gen ed teacher is now responsible for specialized instruction, and something that they've maybe never, I think specialized instruction if you taught more than 5 years, but it's also this thing that you're like, I'm responsible for 28 kids, and 10 to 12 to 13 of them have specialized instruction on their IEPs in this classroom. Like, how are you supposed to meet all of these needs? And parents are really frustrated too, because they're like, my kid needs help. Like, why are they not getting this instruction? Like, they don't need to be in a self-contained classroom, but they're falling behind. Well, you have these opportunities with funky educators who are like, let's be different, let's be weird, kind of thing. And you can, seek these people out too. It's really about getting your own power back. And then the relationships with the parents. And, I've made some of my best friends through this. Like, I'm so close with some of these people, and, and then meeting other teachers and hearing their stories and experiences. Like, the right people will come into your life, but you've got to take a leap of faith. And that's the hardest part in all of this. So, and maybe that leap of faith will come in a way that you're just, you're tutoring after school for a little bit. I think that's a really, 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 really good way to get started with this. When I initially started, I only had one student full time. And then I tutored after when I could, when my daughters were with their dad. And oh my goodness, there's a lot to be said there. If you don't need time after school hours, let me tell you, you can tutor until 10 o'clock at night, and you will have a full schedule, and people will pay you. They'll pay you $100 an hour at least. Like, if you're good at what you do, like, charge what you're worth. I think that's the other part of this. Like, I think teachers are really afraid to ask for what they're worth, because we're told, oh, but you're doing this for the kids. It's for the kids. Like, do it for the kids. And you're like, but I have bills to pay. Food has gone up like 3 times, like 3 times the amount this year.
Yeah.
Like, how are you supposed to do this? Like, it's really an amazing thing. And also my relationship with myself, which I don't think I've even touched on really, but like, I like myself. I get up and I'm excited to go to work most days. There's still days that I'm like, oh gosh, what is it going to look like today? But that's a human being experience, right? Like you never know what kind of chaos is coming your way, especially if it's like raining and we don't get to go outside, right? Like, oh gosh, what is today going to look like? But yeah, I feel good about what I do. I feel, and I'm happy. Like I'm truly happy, and I'm really enjoying it. And um, life has slowed down in a way that and also sped up. But my time is my own, and I think that's really the big thing I want other teachers to hear is that your time can be your own again if you want it to be. You just have to figure out how
Yeah.
to get there, and maybe you don't. Maybe you just say, okay, I want my time to be what it is, and you start doing some sort of tutoring, whatever it looks like, and then maybe that's how you find your niche too, like you were speaking about earlier. For me, I love modifying and accommodating curriculum. Please give me your little thinker that does not think like everybody else. That's like my favorite thing is figuring it out. Give me the puzzle, right? And especially if they're, not able to communicate with me in a traditional way, even better. Good, more of a challenge. But if you just like to teach reading, oh my goodness, you have a lot of opportunity out there. There are so many parents who have their kiddos that are unfortunately in gen ed classes, right? And they're falling behind and they need tutoring. Use your public library as an opportunity to meet people. I've seen tutors working in Target before, at Starbucks. You don't have to have your own space necessarily. You just have to be creative.
Yeah, and you just have to have the passion that you clearly have, that I have, that all of these people who are transitioning into something different have. And going back to the personal relationships, I mean, I don't have a family of my own as of yet, but all of the guests I've had and everybody I've spoken to, when you're in the classroom and you have all this stress and you're on 100% of the time and you have to deal with things as they come, and you come home. And a lot of people have said, while I was a teacher in the classroom, I wasn't the mom I wanted to be. I wasn't the dad I wanted to be. I was so stressed, and I felt like I was doing a disservice to my own family to take care of the kids that I was taking care of in the school. And when they left, they became totally different people. Their relationships were better. They weren't as stressed. They had their time
Yeah,
back. And so those are things that are across the board, something that is always spoken about, and it's something that is so valuable as an individual person, right? And speaking to the entrepreneurship of this is that, you know, again, there are so many facets to leaving the classroom. There are so many facets to the things you can do. You can start your own business, which I'd like to touch on that for a second, because one thing that I mentioned to a lot of people, because I have a lot of conversations with people interested in starting their own business, is you have to understand who you are as a person, where if you want to start your own business where it's just you, it is completely different to you starting your own business to hire people eventually, right? And there's no wrong way to do it. It's whatever works best for you. And so if you are that person that wants to teach under your own set of rules and standards, and that's all you're doing, wonderful, great. If you are trying to hire people, it is a different
yeah,
ball game, right? And so there's that piece. But at the same time, leaving the classroom does not mean that you only have to start your own business. You can work for other businesses.
absolutely.
There are contractor
Yeah,
roles. There are things that you can do. Like you said, Alicia, you can tutor after school. There are so many options. You are not pigeonholed into one specific style of, well, if I leave the classroom, I definitely have to start my own business. Otherwise, I can't do what I want to do. And that's it. Yes, there is autonomy to starting your own business, but there's also
yeah,
freedom in leaving the classroom and going to work for
there
somebody else,
is.
right?
And like
And it
so
all,
many
yeah.
tutoring opportunities out there. It's insane.
It's endless. It's absolutely endless. I mean, speaking of Arizona, it is true. And politically or not, I think it's a logical argument to say that the people who are retiring aren't really, they would prefer their funds to go
Yeah,
to them. And so the education piece is lacking, and it's to no fault of theirs. It's just what they're looking for with their own things. But I would say that although Arizona is 49th or 50th at this point, I give respect to the fact that they say, hey, these are the conditions in which we are in this state, and we are going to allocate these funds to
yes,
give parents a little bit more freedom. And so I do give a lot of respect to that, because that is something you have to identify a problem within a structure, and as little or as much as you can do about it within that structure. I do respect the fact that they created this
Yeah.
ESA, and there's a few other states that are doing it as
Awesome.
well. And it's a solution. It's a solution to something that, nothing can be perfect. And so it is a solution that they are offering, and it's giving more freedom to the parents and offering more opportunities to teachers to be able to do stuff like you are doing as
Yeah,
well.
it's hard to cover everything under one umbrella, right? Like there just has to be different facets, and it's education is not a one size fits all solution ever. And that's really, I think, the really interesting thing with all of this has been for me is that one kid can learn one way, but another child learns completely different, a different way. And then we're trying to put them all in this one space with no, like I said, no opportunity for movement. And we're human beings, and humans are meant to move. Like I can't even sit still during this conversation. I'm like using my hands and moving and all this stuff, right? So yeah, I appreciate Arizona seeing that there's an issue and trying to give an opportunity to solve it. And of course, there's the people that take advantage of it. There's always going to be these people that take advantage of something, right? Like there's, even in public schools, there's parents taking advantage of certain things. But it's just a really interesting idea to give some more school choice here in Arizona. I was not sure I was for it initially, actually, because I thought, oh, they're going to take money away from public schools. But, that's a different conversation for a different day and how all of that works. But yeah, I'm really excited about the choice for everybody. There's choice for teachers, there's choice for kids, there's choice for parents. I think it's, like I said earlier, it's a very narrow conversation most of the time, but I'm loving this opportunity to be like, we don't have to have walls on this box. There's no ceiling on it either. Like, let's just see what it explodes into, because, right now, I mean, there's no way to say that public schools are working well. Unfortunately, if you look at our statistics of kids like reading rates and math, like they're all so far behind. So, I'm really excited that there's these opportunities to be different, and maybe model something for somebody. Like maybe some public school is going to go, oh, maybe we should add more play-based learning. When I went to school in kindergarten, we did dress up. Like we did half day kindergarten. Like schools really changed a lot in the past 20 to 40 years compared to where we used to be. And I think we're on that way to doing some big changes again. I think, like you had alluded to earlier when we were speaking, I think public education is going to go in an interesting journey in the next 5 to 10 years. So it'll be I'm here for it. I'm going to be observing. I think that I agree with a lot of the stuff that's still out there. Like, for example, you only have to have a high school diploma to tutor here in Arizona. So I make sure to let people know that I'm a certified teacher because I think that's really important. I think it's important that you do teach in a classroom for at least 2 years. I think that is like experience that you're not going to get any other place. So whether it's a charter or a public or a private school, I really encourage you, if you're just starting your educational journey, you have to find other people to collaborate with. Especially I think for the first 2 years, because there's a lot of learning that happens, at least for me. I'm still learning. I'm still following other, go on Instagram and follow people who you think teach well. I do that all the time and I use their stuff, and I, will absolutely give them credit and things like that. But there's so much room for creativity here. And I really hope that public schools takes a time to start letting teachers do that. It breaks my heart that there's not even like physical books sometimes. Like it's so rad that we're giving kids laptops and iPads, but books are important too. So there's just so much with public schools. It's been a really interesting journey to kind of be a parent of children that go to public schools. And my favorite thing is when they come home with these questions and I'm like, oh, you're asking the right questions. Thank God. Like as long as you're asking the right questions, we're good. Because I'll be your facilitator on how to find the right information, right? And because there was a situation with my 11-year-old the other day and she's like, oh, I saw this on YouTube. And I was like, should we believe everything we see on YouTube? Like, is everything on YouTube correct? So, just silly little conversations like that. And
Yeah.
that in public school is, narrow, we are doing this. And I understand it because they have to get the majority of the kids through, right? We're trying to move children through the program and trying to graduate them with literacy and, mathematics skills that they can go out into the world and hopefully be productive members of society. But for
Yeah.
me, when I was working in public schools, it didn't feel that way. It felt like you need to sit down and listen. And that has really been like my personal like vendetta against public schools, is that I was like, we need to let our kids ask questions, like give them the opportunities for this. And then going back to that security part of it, even hearing from my strong, confident daughters that sometimes they're afraid to ask a question in school. I'm like, that's the part that drives me crazy, because they're considerate people, right? They see that there's so many kids that need more help than they do, that maybe their teacher's having a bad day and maybe being more transparent than they should be, or, that they're dealing with dress code violations. I don't know. There's so many little tiny things that can happen in public school that take away from the learning experience.
Yeah. And that box that you're talking about public school, I think a lot of people also put that box around homeschooling, where they say, okay, homeschooling, and they think to themselves, oh, well, I can't teach my
Yeah.
kid all day every day. I don't know how to do so. And homeschooling is not that, as we
Yeah.
both know, right? So for any parent listening, homeschooling has so many different options. It is one word to kind of describe a type of education, but there's so many options. There's, things like Alicia is doing. There's online tutoring. There's online
Hmm.
homeschooling. There's homeschool co-ops. There's endless possibilities and
Yeah.
opportunities, and you can find them within that realm of homeschooling. And what I would say about, what you said about having classroom experience, and I say this to people all the time. If you feel as though you are someone who is good with kids and can offer value to students, then you should go into the classroom for 2 years, 5 years, however many years, until you feel as though things are starting to get a little plateaued for you. And do not, one thing I like to say is, like, don't let the carrot at the end of the stick be, well, I'm going to stick it out for 40
Yeah.
years and then I have these a pension, right? It's that is something significant and important, and if you have to do so for your family, I completely respect and agree with that. But if you are not someone who needs to do that for that specific reason, getting out when it's
Yeah.
time is so important to yourself, to your family, to the people around you. And again, as we've noticed today and with many other guests on this podcast, is that just because you leave the classroom does not mean that you leave education as a
Yeah.
whole. And again, that's what this podcast is all about. It's the opportunities, the amazing stories like Alicia's about all of the things that she has done differently, the way that she is communicating with parents, the way that Alicia is working with students who talk about that transition before, right? Where things were completely night and day from the public school classroom to where that student is now. There are just so many things. Alicia, I'm curious, where does the sunflower come in here
Oh, okay.
for you?
So I have always been drawn to sunflowers. This is a pretty personal story. So my student that passed away, as I said, was very, very special to me. And we had a really special connection. And kissing is not okay at school, but this sweet little guy, it had been a really tough semester, and I was like, hey, bud, let's go for a walk. Because that was kind of just like my way that I connected with students when I could tell they were like a little overwhelmed and needed some one-on-one time. And we walked out of the classroom and I was holding his hand and he kissed me right here. And I normally say,
Oh,
kisses are only for mommies and daddies. And I didn't say anything to him that day. And I just sort of let myself have this moment. And we walked to the front office and we just sort of talked as we normally do, and probably talked about spaghetti and meatballs and red sauce because that was his favorite thing in the whole world. And besides his family. And then we walked back. And then I got, and I kind of just held this moment for myself, and I didn't really share it with anybody. And I always called him my little ray of sunshine. And that had been a very transformative year for me, because I had really started to soul search with what was I going to do when I left teaching, because we had this violent student. He had finally been put in a different situation, and I knew it was time for me to start looking for something else. So I had this beautiful moment with my student, and then he died the next day. And I just sort of started seeing red sunflowers everywhere. And his favorite color was red. And for me, the sunflower was kind of just my special way of acknowledging growth. So the red sunflower is for him. And I actually have his beads that he used to stim with in my classroom, like sitting here on my lamp. And actually the art behind me, that little sunflower, is a gift from his mother that she made for me, the one that's going to come and co-teach. And actually she went with me to get my tattoo, which is right where I got that really, I call it my angel kiss, that kind of sent all of this into motion. I unfortunately think that God took and I think she's okay with me saying his name, took him too early, but that he's been my guardian angel through all of this. And Peter, you can totally laugh, because I planted sunflowers in my backyard always, and they're supposed to be these huge Russian mammoth sunflowers, and they're red. So I just think he plays jokes on me all the time. And he's like, no. Red sunflowers, Wronski. And I'm like, I hear you and I see you. Like, it just, even everything just comes up with the red sunflower is just, I know that he's watching me and he's with me. And, that's where the sunflowers come into play. They're kind of my guiding light, and they're the symbol for growth for me. So.
I mean, you got me all choked up here, Alicia, and it's such a beautiful story, and it's in memory of that student and all of the things that if you think about, he has created this for not only you and for his family, but he's also created it for the families that you're helping, and he's here, and watching over with his red sunflowers. And
I had to laugh. I
I've
was like,
never
I can't
teared up
even
on a
believe this. These are
podcast
supposed to be
before.
yellow sunflowers, and they're red, and they're huge, and they're just like going up to the heavens. And I was like, you are just the most, hilarious even in the afterlife, playing jokes on me. Because that truly is. And all of our kids are special, right? But we all have that one that you just never forget. And it's just, he's been the biggest blessing besides my own family in my life. I really, really believe that God put him in my path so I could live a more beautiful life. And he really facilitated that. And also, I was talking to my husband about grief this morning, and that it comes and goes. And I know Father's Day can be really tough for a lot of people. And I have a beautiful relationship with my father, but it was bringing up grief. And I was like, it's just so interesting how some days it feels so small and some days it feels so big. But just that really grief is such an important part of life. And I don't think I would be as happy and know this kind of joy, unfortunately, if I didn't have that experience. I don't think any child should die so young. There's so many questions out there about why, but I just feel really, really blessed to have been his teacher, and that he continues to guide us through all of this, and in a really, really beautiful way. I really feel like those of us who are educators, we do get those little whispers of try this sometimes or do this. And I always think that I just have to listen because I have a really good angel working for me. He's putting it in upstairs for us.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's why the sunflowers are so important.
And the light that you're bringing to, again, to the families and to the world, and everything that you're doing right now is I feel exactly where you're
Yeah,
supposed to
yeah,
be. And if it were not for the adversities and the grieving and the things that we go through in life, it may not have come to this point. This is what an incredible story, what an incredible student.
yeah,
Thank you so much for all of
yeah.
this. Is there anything at all that you would like to add that I did not ask you about?
No, I don't think so. I loved your questions. They were so good. You really got me with the sunflowers. I know you probably didn't think that would be the one that got me, but I was like, oh no. I mean, it's
Like
the
I said,
coolest
I've never.
story, but it's just oh man, what a special little soul. And it's just so funny because like I have so much of his family like coming in and out of my home all the time, and it's just like I didn't lose him. I gained more
Wow.
people. I really gained more people in my
Yes,
life. And
absolutely.
actually like it's just and our families are friends. So like my daughters, they heard about him a lot when I was his teacher, but now they like really know who he is and was because they get
Yeah.
to grow up with these people too. And that's really the cool thing about all of this is that like we're going to have a pool party as a meet the teacher thing. I think we're going to end up doing a pool party this year. Like you don't get to do that. It's just we're a little weird group of people doing our own thing. It's really fun.
It's uh it, it's
It's
so
so
fun.
fun.
So fun.
I hope
And
please reach out to me. Like, it's just, I just really think everyone can do this if they want to. I really think there's so many beautiful opportunities for people to take advantage of this and, do what their heart is telling them to do.
I
Yeah,
totally agree. And again, this is one of the reasons I
I
started this
love this.
podcast, was to hear amazing stories like yours, and to allow people the opportunity to hear of the different options that are in life, whether you're a parent, teacher, or student, or anybody
Yeah.
who's just interested in this in general. And thank you for sharing that personal
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
story, and I really do appreciate that. And what is your lasting message you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Let's go with my motto. Let's make learning fun. Let's make learning fun.
Wonderful.
Stop trying to fit into a box. Stop trying to be someone you're not. We tell it to our students all the time, but teachers, guess what? That applies to you too. Make learning fun. How is it? You're the guide. Yeah, I like that. You're the guide. So how are you going to guide them into making learning fun again? So it goes all the way around. And then for our admin that might be listening, I hope you are. I hope you hear the voices of your teachers and create environments that create community, because that's really how we're going to fix all of this. It's not going to be paperwork. It's not going to be adding more testing. It's not going to be, a certain percentage of kids graduating. It's creating community. So let's make learning fun and create some community. I think we'll leave it at that.
Beautiful, lasting message. Where can people find you?
Sustainable Sunflower Tutoring for my Instagram handle. That's kind of where I do everything. And you can find me on Facebook under the same name. But I'm kind of an open book. So message me, ask me questions, and I'll answer very bluntly and honestly for you. So
And we need more of that. We need more of that in
yeah,
this world.
yeah.
Alicia, the light you brought to this
Oh, thank you. This was
podcast, the
just so
light you
much
bring
fun.
to the
I think you and
parents,
I could
and
talk for like hours.
I know we definitely could. It's such an amazing conversation, and you are making such a big difference, and the light that your student is shining
Yeah.
through you and through what you're doing is something that is changing the people around you in such amazing ways. You are helping parents find light at the end of a tunnel that they didn't even understand there was an end
Yeah.
to. You are giving this opportunity to students to thrive inside of a structure that you've created for them. And you have allowed yourself to take leaps in life so that you can get to this point to offer this to the people around you and to create this life that you've always
Yeah.
wanted. So, Alicia, you are truly an
Thank
inspiration to
you.
anybody listening. And I thank you so much for being here. And I really look forward to staying in
Yeah, please
touch.
do.
And
Anytime. I would love it. Thank you
yeah,
so much, Peter. This has been really awesome. Thank you. All
thank
right.
you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And have a wonderful
Thanks.
day.